What is going on, y'all? This is Pay Me in Dividends, and today's June 18th, 2025. I meant to make this video a couple days ago, but I've been very busy at the moment, so we're making it today, right? We're pushing forward. Excuse me if my audio is off. I do not have my microphone at the moment, but we're going to push through and we're going to make this video. I want to talk about MAGY versus YMAG, all right? MAGY versus YMAG. MAGY, M-A-G-Y, is from Roundhill, and YMAG is from YieldMax. If you have been following this channel, or if you're familiar with high yield dividends, I'm sure you're familiar with both of these ETFs. And the reason I want to cover them is because, hence the name, right? MAGY, YMAG, they offer exposure to the Magnificent Seven. All right. Now, these two ETFs have two different strategies. And so this is why I want to cover them. And I think they're a good kind of like competition or versus against each other. All right. Now, you guys let me know in the comments which one you like better. But we're going to go through some of the important characteristics of each ETF so that you have a better understanding of how they work. And then you could decide if these are good for you or not. All right, so we're going to look at MAGY first. And one noticeable difference from MAGY to YMAG is the fact that MAGY actually holds the underlying via their another Roundhill ETF, MAGS, M-A-G-S. And I'm going to show you guys exactly what I mean by that right now. So if you come down to the holdings, you can see 99% of the holdings for MAGY, basically the entire holding, is, with the exception of an open options contract, is MAGS, M-A-G-S. Now, again, this is MAGY. MAGS is also from Roundhill, M-A-G-S. And what this is an ETF. It is not a dividend ETF, but what it does is it holds the Magnificent Seven. All right, so we have Microsoft, we have Nvidia, Tesla, Meta, Google, Amazon, Apple, and basically this tracks the Magnificent Seven, and this is MAGS, M-A-G-S. Now, what Roundhill did with MAGY is they hold that ETF in this portfolio. And then they sell options on it. They perform options on it in order to generate that dividend from the option premium. So again, they're actually invested into the underlying via MAGS. All right. Now, the yield is lower. You'll see it has a 25% dividend yield, but it does hold the underlying. And if you go down here to the distributions, now just keep in mind that this is a very new ETF. All right, this is a very new ETF, so there's not much history to it. But since inception, you can see that the dividend has been extremely stable, extremely predictable, with the exception of the first two. And I think that might have been because they probably had excess option premium when it first opened up, because they were probably running options on it previous to actually, giving it to investors. That's just kind of my theory. It can also be a marketing tactic, right? They want to lure people in with that higher distribution so that they can get that influx of money. But now that it has settled in the market for the past couple months, it has been extremely consistent. But again, just keep in mind that this fund is extremely new. The inception date is April 25th or April 23rd, 2025. So it's barely even 2 months old, extremely new. But it has been consistent, and I really, really like how they hold the underlying, and they're not overextending themselves on this yield. And the reason why I say overextending themselves is because, if we're being honest, if we look at the holdings, there's not MicroStrategy in it. There's not, again, if we go back over to MAGS, which is the underlying, right, of their holdings, You don't have a MicroStrategy, you don't have a Palantir. Now you do have NVIDIA, which offers some volatility, which is good for option premium. You also have Tesla, which is good for volatility, good for option premium. But Microsoft, Meta, Google, Amazon, Apple, they have their moments where they're volatile, but they're not as volatile as a Palantir or MicroStrategy. All right, so you just got to keep in mind that this is not going to yield 80 to 100% like some of these other ETFs that many of us enjoy putting our money into. So this is a bit different, but it does offer a bit more stability. Now YMAG, all right, now YMAG, you'll see it offers a 58% yield. Now here's the difference between YMAG and MAGY. YMAG does not directly invest into any of these ETFs, all right? So if we go down here to the holdings, we can see the holdings are the Magnificent 7 via the YieldMax ETFs. And if you're familiar with the YieldMax ETFs, at least the individual company ETFs, they do not invest directly into the company. All right, they are doing what is called synthetic options, and I'll prove it to you right now. All right, so you have NVIDIA, you have Microsoft, Amazon. So if we go up here, and I want to show you guys this again so you have a better understanding of this. All right, so you're not just looking at the yield and being drawn in by the yield. So if we go to, let's say, MVDY, which is the NVIDIA option strategy for YieldMax, we'll see here, if this thing will load. I know it's taking a while. Here we go. So you'll see MVDY. The fund does not invest directly in NVIDIA. Now, YieldMax does have some ETFs that actually holds the underlying. But when it comes to these Magnificent 7 ETFs and YieldMax, they do not invest directly into NVIDIA. All right, these are synthetic options. So that is something to keep in mind when you're invested into YMAG, is that the underlying is synthetic options. So they're not actually invested into the underlying. I know I've just said that repeatedly, but I think it's something that you should keep in mind when investing into these type of ETFs, so that you have a bit more knowledge and some more longevity. All right, so that's just something to consider. I'm not saying that YMAG is a bad investment. It can be a great investment because it does pay weekly, just like MAGY, and it has been out longer. All right, it's been out over a year now. The inception date is January of 2024, so it has a lot more history than MAGY. All right, and if we look at the payouts, we can see, since 2024, it's been paying out a dividend. Now, the dividends on this one does fluctuate, and my theory on that is that similar to many YieldMax ETFs, with these synthetic options, it seems like at points they may overextend themselves. And I want to show you right here in the share price. All right, if we max out the chart on YMAG, we can see that the inception price was around $20 a share, and since inception it is down 24%. All right, now if we look at MAGY, MAGY, granted this has only been out for 2 months, but since inception it's actually up 7%. All right, so do what you will with that information, but what I like about MAGY again is that they actually hold the underlying via the MAGS ETF, which holds the underlying. Now what I want to do is I want to do a comparison in performance since the inception of MAGY. So pretty much a 2-month comparison, and this is dividendchannel.com. If you want to use this website, it's very, very clutch to be able to compare different stocks and ETFs. So looking at this chart, it looks like that YMAG has actually outperformed MAGY over the past 2 months. All right, YMAG with dividends reinvested, a hypothetical $10,000, you would be up 110%. Annualized gain, or we'll say 16% in this time frame, right, since April 23rd of 2025. And with MAGY, you would be up 12%. Obviously, MAGY has a lower yield, right? Again, we just saw they pay about 25% annualized yield, whereas YMAG pays over 50% annualized dividend yield. And you'll see the share price in this time frame for YMAG went from $14 to $15, so about a $1 gain in share price. And MAGY went from $52 to $56, about a $4 gain in share price. So over the past 2 months, YMAG has outperformed MAGY. Now, what I'm going to tell you guys is I do have MAGY on my watch list because I would like some exposure to the Magnificent 7. I know there's a lot of people who say that the MAG7 is done for. I don't believe it because, again, if you look at the balance sheets, you look at, the type of money that these companies are generating, it's just not true, right? You have Microsoft, one of the biggest companies in the world. All of these companies, the only one that's a bit questionable is Tesla, and I believe Tesla will be around for a very long time. It's just so intertwined with political news that it tends to get beaten up on the share price. But with the exception of Tesla, Nvidia, Microsoft, Meta, Google, Amazon, these companies are like monopolies. Apple, you're probably watching this on your iPhone, you know what I mean? So, these are this is a pretty solid portfolio. Again, it doesn't offer as high of volatility as something like a Palantir or a MicroStrategy, but you're still getting enough volatility, to get that 25% annualized yield, while also, capitalizing on the share price over time. So this is on my watch list. I'm not putting any money into it at the moment. Because I want to see some history behind it. So I'll probably, wait at least a couple more months to see how it performs, and then do a comparison against YMAG again. Although they're a good comparison because they're both offering exposure to the Magnificent 7. However, it's two completely different strategies, and I think in the long run, MAGY will outlast YMAG, assuming both ETF managers are still around over the long term, right? Just because they hold the assets, the underlying assets, and they're not overextending themselves with a ridiculous yield, but they're still offering a very high yield. 25% is still awesome, and that yield is paid out on a weekly basis, whereas YMAG is paid out on a weekly basis as well, but it's paying 58% on synthetic options, and the share price is tanking over time. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll revisit this in a couple months and see where these ETFs are. But you guys let me know in the comments, which one do you like better? Which one do you prefer? Do you like YMAG because of the history behind it? It has more longevity. It has a higher yield. Maybe you're not too concerned with the share price, and I completely understand that. Or are you more leaning towards MAGY from Roundhill because of it's more conservative approach, maybe suppressing that yield in order to capitalize on the share price? You guys let me know in the comments. What do you think? As always, I appreciate you stopping by the channel, and I will catch you in the next video.